Hi everybody, welcome back to Giant Talk, the world's first OKR podcast. Hope you're all having a great day today. We've got an awesome guest today, the lovely Alex Ford from Encompass. Say hi, Alex.
Hi everyone, thanks Lawrence.
No problem. And today we're going to be chatting a little bit, Alex, about why you guys at Encompass chose to run with OKRs as your performance management methodology, aren't we?
Great, thank you. Yeah, look forward to it.
Cool. So obviously there are lots of different ones out there, and everybody knows by now that we at Derby Giants are massive OKR evangelists, but we can preach about them all day long. But it's really interesting today that we're going to get a bit of an insight from a company who actually chose to adopt OKRs as their methodology and find out a little bit about how that journey's gone for those guys. So Alex, tell us a little bit about yourself.
About myself, I'm based here in Glasgow in sunny Scotland. Been here for 4 years now with my family, which is myself and my husband Adam and our twin boys Fred and Charlie, who are about 18 months. So moved to the UK with Encompass actually when we expanded to set up here, but originally from Australia, from a place called Darwin in the very north, a tropical city.
Nice. So you're comfortable with the heat wave we've had over the past couple of years?
I've coped with the Scottish summers so far. The winters put me through the test a little bit more, but yeah.
Well, you say that. How many times did we have to reschedule the recording of this podcast, Alex?
Yes.
Cool. So there's you, your husband, and your two little boys. That's right.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So Scotland's been really great for us, and enjoying life here, and really good for Encompass too as a company. We've got the office here in Glasgow, but also down in London. So I enjoy spending some time there too, but having the base here is good.
Cool. That's great. So who would you describe as your hero, Alex? Who's inspired you throughout your professional career or even your personal life?
Yeah, if I'm allowed to name a couple, I think growing up, actually, I always wanted to play hockey for Australia. So at that time, there was a lady called Alison Annan in the Australian hockey team, and all the hockey roos were very much an inspiration for me. And then I think, later in life and professionally, actually, I recently listened to Michelle Obama's book as an audio book, which you tend to have more success completing an audio book these days with two little boys running around than sitting down and having a good old read. But I found that one really inspiring, actually, and it was really interesting story to listen to. So that was a really good one as well.
Becoming, is it?
Sorry?
It's called Becoming, is it?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's it. That's the one. Yeah, so just the story of their family and pre-election. And I suppose on a really professional bent, I did read Sheryl Sandberg's Lean In book, and that is something, I wouldn't call her a hero to me, but I think, in terms of inspirations and the way I've looked at how I've approached my career or different attitudes to topics at different times, certainly I found some good lessons there. And more recently, Kim Scott has a great, I don't know if it's a TED Talk, maybe it is, but a video online I've seen about radical candor. And as a manager and leader, I found that a quite inspiring piece, actually, that I've come back to a few times.
I haven't seen the talk online, actually, but it's a fantastic book.
Yeah, it's a great approach and some good lessons in that one. So, yeah, a few in the mix.
So what's your favourite non-business book then? Or
what's my favourite? I think that's a hard one, isn't it? I think I always thought Shawshank Redemption was a brilliant film. That's probably one you never get tired of watching when it comes up in the suggestions or you see it. Yeah, it's such a good one. Growing Up, The Sound of Music, or for a bit of cheese, Love Actually is always a winner.
A nice bit of Christmas cheese.
Yeah.
So what was your background before joining Encompass then?
Before Encompass, actually, I knew the founders of Encompass from a previous business, another software company we'd worked at that made software for intelligence purposes. So it was used by police forces and other intelligence agencies. But between that role and more immediately before Encompass, I worked for an organisation called the Institute of Executive Coaching and Leadership. So it was a business that helped a lot of bigger organisations in Australia train their managers and leaders in how to have difficult conversations and how to bring coaching into the workplace. So that was actually a great job to have at an early stage in my career, because I saw a lot of those sorts of things, those sorts of behaviours role modelled, and obviously working for a company that totally valued those things and indeed taught other organisations how to do it. So I've always thought that set me off on a good stead or on a good trajectory in terms of keeping those things at the forefront of how I work and lead and manage people.
Okay, so that sounds really interesting. So how have you brought that into your role at Encompass now then, and what is your role at Encompass?
My role at Encompass is VP of Operations. So that's looking after our customer success and solution consulting teams who do the implementation of our software, and also the product team who build the software, decide what we build for who and why, and our internal IT and security teams, which equip our staff internally. So in terms of what I've brought, I guess, from that background into the operations role and how we running the business, I think it's just having that mind or that eye on the way we go about what we're doing and what we're trying to achieve and how we're going to engage people. I think I've just always had an innate interest in the business as a social experiment, or how you're attracting people and getting the most out of people and why they come to work for you, and what are the different things you can do to set people up for success and make them feel like they really can do their best work while they're with you. So I think that curiosity and that frame, and keeping that in mind as we go about doing our everyday tasks, and when you've got deadlines and projects and things to do, but keeping that lens always on it is where I've brought it into the operations role here.
Wow, so that sounds pretty fascinating. So you've got this is going to sound like a cheesy pun, but you've got a pretty all-encompassing role at the organisation, don't you?
Yeah, I do. I really
parts to look after there.
Yeah.
So just give us a really brief overview about what Encompass do then, just to help us contextualise it a little bit.
Yeah. So Encompass is a software as a service business, and we have software that's used in legal and financial service firms to help them comply with anti-money laundering regulations. So these firms that are subject to the regulations, banks, lawyers and others, are required to carry out what's called Know Your Customer due diligence, or KYC in the industry. And what we do is aggregate and automate the collection of data that they need to rely on and is recognised as trusted sources of information, so that they can get the full picture on their customer really quickly and demonstrate, importantly, to the regulators that they've done that. So we provide a one-stop shop for getting the information about the company and the people, the directors, identity verification, et cetera, that at the moment is collected by analysts in a really manual way, going from website to website and taking screenshots and other things that you wouldn't believe still go on in these organisations. We get our robotic process automation to carry out those tasks and collect the information, presented in minutes instead of hours or days that it can sometimes take at the moment.
Amazing. So what's the journey been like for the organisation over the past few years then? Because I'm aware that they moved their headquarters from Australia to Glasgow, which seems insane to me. Gaps.
Yes, it's been quite a journey, and I often reflect and laugh that we say, we're in the best position we've ever been and the next 6 months are the most important. And it's always true. And, it really is going from next step to next step, and everything you learned that got you to the point you're at now, sort of you couldn't have made the next move or opened the next door or pathway without covering that. So it's really felt like our journey has grown, and we've progressed quite rapidly, and sometimes along different paths along the way. So probably the biggest change has been when we first landed in the UK, having signed a deal with our go-to market partner in Australia, SAI Global, which gave us the catalyst to come to the UK and test our next market, knowing that the US was sort of always in mind, but maybe not having the full product maturity and scale yet to take on that market, that we entered with a beachhead market in mind and targeting restructuring insolvency professionals, with the visualization being the strength of our product. And from there, we actually took what at the time, but on reflection, seems less courageous, but at the time wasn't as obvious as it is in retrospect, made a pivot to focus on this Know Your Customer challenge, because we had a product that had these strengths and capabilities of bringing data together in an automated way. And we saw that we could apply that to the Know Your Customer challenge being faced by banks and law firms and others, to solve what for those industries was a really burning problem with a regulatory driver behind it. So we made that pivot shortly after we came to the UK, and from there we've really found, I'd say, a sweet spot or a niche that is solving a problem which is today or until today had been left unaddressed and was really a very manual, tedious task in the banks. So yeah, it's been a real journey, and I guess one of the highlights being building teams in our different locations, Sydney, Glasgow and London along the way.
I was just about to ask about that. So how have you seen that journey represented in growth in terms of headcount?
Well, we're at just over 90 people today. And I think in Glasgow, that's about 30. We've got about 25 in London and the same in Sydney, which was our original office and still has a lot of our original staff and still a very important development and research team. And actually we're now selling the KYC product back in Australia. So that's sort of growing there again, back where it all began, if you like. So we've seen the team build and grow. We've got a big engineering department, and we've got a sales and marketing product focus in London, and we've got more marketing customer success in Glasgow. So it's great to see the different parts of the business develop and have actually individuals within those teams grow and take on more responsibility. And that's probably one of the best things I think about working somewhere like Encompass, is that the pace of growth of the company can keep up with the people, or vice versa. You can see some people just continue to take on more and more responsibility as the role expands and the company expands, and we're asking more of people, and it sort of gives people the opportunity to make the role what they want it to be and define their own job descriptions in a lot of cases.
Amazing. So is it this growth in not only headcount but officers and new functions that led to you guys looking for a new performance management system?
Yeah, I don't think we, even now, I don't know that I'd call it a performance management system or think of it that way, although, I can totally see how it is that or would be that in other organisations. And I think the thing that we set out to do was just really bring more alignment to what we were doing and more clarity and clear connection between the roles of people across these different teams and how that was all working towards common goals and growth in the company. And so less about, being able to measure performance of individuals, say, or teams, and more about ensuring alignment and communication and giving enough clarity and definition about where we wanted to go, but still allowing enough freedom that people felt empowered to achieve that and set their own direction, but within some kind of structure, or some sort of.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think I'm not 100% convinced that the labeling of OKRs as a performance management system is the best tagline either, because I think it's much more than that with the whole strategy and execution piece.
Yeah, I think my mind just goes to sort of scores out of 5 and distributed bell curves and wherever when I think of the performance management system, or, completing forms and some of the more traditional kind of HR methods, if you like, whereas with OKRs, I feel there's a lot more fluidity or freedom or make it your own type.
So do Encompass still use any of those more traditional methods alongside their OKRs? Or
no, we don't actually, but we never have. And I wouldn't say that's necessarily a good thing either. We recently did a staff survey and with a lot of positive feedback there, and actually, really pleased to see that by and large we're getting a lot of things right. But one area I think we recognised where we could bring more structure was into the way performance conversations happen in the organisation, because different departments do it differently. And when you start as a founder-led company and everybody sits in the same office and, culturally you learn things by osmosis, or performance is sort of discussed in the moment or understood across a smaller group. But as you spread out, you have to make things that were implicit explicit, and that's or maybe you sit in a different office to your direct report or your line manager or your colleague. And so making the time to have the conversation that says, here's the difference between what I was expecting and what you delivered, or, here's something you did really, really well. Keep going in that way because it has this sort of impact. It becomes harder and harder to do those. So we just need to be more deliberate about some of those things. And that's where having nothing doesn't work, but having a prescriptive system doesn't either. So it's finding the balance, isn't it, where managers know what's expected of them by the organisation in terms of managing performance with their staff, but also your team members and colleagues have a framework that they know what the process is as well and get the feedback they need to improve or move towards whatever their own goals are.
100%. Yeah, that is really interesting, because something that we speak about a lot at Derby Giants is linking OKRs to performance management. And, we have had clients in the past who have declared to all their staff, in a big conference-style meeting that OKRs are going to bring about the death of the annual appraisal within the organisation, and the death of all those traditional performance management systems we've just touched on there. And actually, they regretted that.
Really? Okay, that's interesting. Yeah.
There's more work to it. And also, as you guys know at Encompass, there has to be a bit more of a phased rollout than just saying OKRs are going to replace all performance management techniques within the business.
Yeah, definitely.
You can't do that overnight. Yeah,
I just see them as having different purposes. And for us, because I know when we did bring it in, we asked people, is anyone familiar with this, or have you had it before? And some people had had them in organisations where it was linked to remuneration as well. So maybe bonuses were tied to that, or other things. And I think for us, we wanted OKRs to be a stretch, and we wanted people. We didn't want people sandbagging, and we just wanted it to be an authentic, way of saying, here's what I'm going to give my best shot at, and not have that interference of, well, hang on, is my bonus tied to this, or is this actually what I'm going to get ranked on for performance? Because I think it was about removing that interference and letting people have a go, because you've got to be a bit experimental. I mean, we're coming into our 4th quarter doing it, and still learning lessons about the process and method itself. And if you felt like, you were going to be disadvantaged if you spoke honestly about a learning, or, composed your OKR in a way that next time would give you a better chance of hitting it, but maybe not advance the organisation or yourself as much as you could, then I don't think you'd be getting as much as you can out of the OKR method.
I completely agree. So when Encompass decided that they were going to implement something of this style, how did that come about? Did somebody on the exec team read about OKRs and think, that's what I want, and champion you to implement OKRs, or were you looking more broader at, okay, what methodologies and frameworks are there that we could bring in to assist the organisation at this stage?
I had come across OKRs reading online, I think, at some point, as you do, following one blog to the next or something, and I had come across some of the Better Works content as well, I think, online, the software company, and then I'd watch some John Doerr stuff, and so I was sort of aware of OKRs as a initiative, or a method that people were using in organisations. And then we had some change in leadership in the organisation, and we'd, I guess, gone from a sort of phase where there'd maybe been a little bit more telling, or a bit less asking questions, and a bit more just get on with it. And we wanted a way of refocusing the culture, and still, like I say, having that alignment and giving people some sense of expectations and where we want to get to, but having a way of doing it that gave people their own say in what was happening, and empowered them to sort of take the reins and take ownership of that goal and step up. So it was, I think, about that time that I was discussing with Wayne, our CEO, that read and researched a little about OKRs, and maybe with that timing and wanting a method of alignment across the organisation and increasing communication across the organisation, that maybe we should have a look at OKRs. And then, just researching online, and came across your good selves looking for OKR experts.
A shameless plug there, that's okay. And did you meet complete buy-in then from Wayne and your other peers, or was there some resistance there at first?
I think there was a recognition that we didn't have anything else as well. So we weren't replacing an existing goal-setting method or performance management system, if you like. So in some ways, there wasn't resistance there, because there was sort of an obvious need that we needed something as a mechanism, or a common way of documenting goals and sharing and discussing those. And Wayne did some reading about it as well, and I think he felt positive about it. And then we discussed it with the executive team and looked at doing it and what it would involve and what the process would be. So there wasn't a lot of resistance, but of course you always feel, I guess, when you're introducing something new like that and a change, and there's a risk of it being perceived as jargon or management guff, or, so as much, I don't know if concern's the right word, maybe, to make sure that the team members and the other people on the management team and the staff in the business would be receptive to it as well, and see that it was really going to help us and the purpose of introducing it.
Okay, so you mentioned before you're approaching your fourth quarter using them now.
Yeah.
The general reception been like from the teams then?
Yeah, it has been good. We've taken a phased approach. So we did it with the management team first. Right. And I think that was good, because they got to learn it, and critically getting, towards the end of your first quarter, where you're thinking, I wish I didn't put that, or I wish I'd measured it this way or that way, or I wish I defined how I was going to measure it, or, you learn all those things. So it's good for the management team to go through that before we introduced it to the next layer. And still now we don't have every individual in the organisation have OKRs, and we make sure we say, you don't have to if it doesn't make sense. So that's within teams, and we've got some areas. So in engineering, for example, we use Jira, and the squads and tribes that we have work from quite defined and specific sets of tasks and activities every day. So we felt that having OKRs on top at the squad member level didn't make sense, but for the managers who are bringing, change and improvement across the whole group, the managers do have OKRs. And likewise in sales has very specific targets and quotas they're trying to meet, and it's not about an overall change initiative or growth other than what's quite specific in their target. So we didn't feel like there was a need to layer it on top there. So I think the way that we've phased it out and tried to make it relevant and specific to staff as we go through has meant that people have received it quite well, and a few other things about how we've done it.
Sounds like you had some very sensible assistants in your implementation.
Some wise folk who'd been there before.
Yeah, Roger's not so bad. When he finds this podcast, I'm sure this will give him a laugh as well. Cool. So you would hopefully say that the overall impact that OKRs has had for Encompass has been positive then?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's been really good. I think just giving people that understanding of the goals overall and communicating them, and making sure that we're aligned and people seeing the connection between what they are doing and what the overall business goals are has been really positive.
Yeah, I think that really is potentially the most powerful piece of OKR methodology for me.
Yeah.
I just know that would have made such a big difference in organisations I've worked in previously, and would have been such an amazing thing to be able to have provided my employees with previously when I've worked in previous organisations.
Yeah, definitely. I think, I sort of don't know what we did before in terms of communicating. We've always had our quarterly update 2 or 3 times a year, as we joke about. We'd share the goals then, but I think it does take a lot of time, and I think that the value comes in the conversations that you have to have in the process of creating the OKRs as much as whatever the content of them actually is. But yeah, I definitely say that it's having a conversation around the goals and is something that maybe we just skipped over before or assumed was shared knowledge. When
I think that's it. I don't think in 99% of organisations there's anything intentional behind leaving those conversations to one side. I think a lot of it's presumed that those conversations are happening and that everybody is on the same page and understands what they're fighting for. But actually that's incredibly rare.
Yeah.
I saw a piece of
subsets, don't you?
Yeah, I saw a piece of research the other day that had been done between Harvard Business School and a number of leading companies. These are big companies, and only 51% of the exec team could name the strategic priorities in their business at the time that research was conducted, and that is a big deck. I believe when it got down to the guys on the front line, 3 or 4 tiers down, it was something like 18% could name the strategic priorities.
Yeah.
So I guess how on earth are those guys supposed to work towards those priorities when they have no idea what they are? Yeah,
exactly. Even at the most senior levels.
So would you say there are any parts of OKRs that haven't worked for you guys at Encompass that you've scrapped or radically changed in your retrospectives?
That we've scrapped or radically changed. I think I would say everybody has reduced the actual number of OKRs they have. So most people are just having one or two or one and some KRs on somebody else's objective at this point. So I think that's something that's probably changed for everyone. Set with the best intentions and ambitions in the first quarters, but realising the value is more on really cherishing that spotlight and using that OKR to say what it really, you've got 90 days. What are you going to get done here? So I think doing that.
That's a fantastic piece of advice, actually.
Yeah.
You even used one of our own analogies about the spotlight there.
Yes, I stole that from you guys. One is the dashboard. Was that you guys? That you have the KPIs are like the engine, the speedometer and telling you how the engine's running, while your OKRs are your sat nav or navman, depending what country you're in, but telling you where you're going. I always liked that.
Yeah, that's Roger's favourite one now.
Yeah, it helps explain. But otherwise, probably one thing that we've done differently, or that I've put extra focus on, is the actual logistics and planning around it, particularly with transitions and getting the times in the diary and accepting how much time it is going to take to have those alignment conversations. And that means being at peace with the value, like I said, having the conversation as much as arriving at the content of the OKR. And so knowing, well, hang on, the exec team has to set those, and then they're going to work with the management team, and then they're going to need some time away to think about it and sleep on it before they, lock them in or talk to their team. And then you need to have all those conversations one-to-one sometimes at some level. And we've got better at just maybe blocking out a half day with the management team and locking ourselves in a room and forcing ourselves, because we're getting better at writing them, I suppose, to get more of it done then and there, rather than take away and come back and take away and come back.
A few cycles to make those realizations and like you say, get better at crafting the OKRs and then really driving the power out of those discussions, like you say.
Yeah, it has. It's taken a few quarters to get there, and something we're still working on, still improving.
Always will be.
Yeah, I think so.
So what does the next 5 years look like for Encompass then?
Well, our goal is to, I think, have a global footprint. So we would like to get to the US, and certainly in the Western world that rely on the data sources that we connect to, be the leading provider of know your customer automation and aggregation. So that's really the goal for us, I think, to get major banks, major law firms across the world using us and having us in the hands of their compliance teams as a go-to source for all the data they need when they're carrying out their know your customer due diligence. And for the business, I think staff-wise, we don't want to grow indefinitely, exponentially for the sake of it. I mean, we're a software as a service business model, so at some point the headcount sort of caps while the revenue keeps growing. So that's the part of the aim too, and the reason that we need to make sure we've got the best people and make sure we're being productive and focused with what we're doing.
Brilliant. And could you see how OKRs are going to help you map that journey clearer and drive everybody behind those priorities?
Yeah, I can. I think, you work in these different cycles or timeframes. I mean, for any business, a 5-year outlook in this day and age is long term to me. And really 90 days is a rhythm that's very meaningful. So I think seeing it, the goal set over a year is quite, requires stepping back and looking up. And so having that outlook of the 12-month horizon is really useful. And that's, it feels like about the right kind of stepping stone to orient your 90-day goals around, and so working in those increments. Each time we get there, we get more realistic with this process as we're getting better about what we can achieve in each quarter. And it is making us say, well, hang on, if we want to get there by the end of the year, really we need to be thinking about that in Q2, or, have those sort of better planning and better outlook and backwards compatibility with what you're doing in the here and now.
Yeah, that's really good to hear. For me, it's a nice touch having seen your guys' OKR journey, really, because my first actual day with Derby Giants was the day that I came to see you guys.
Yeah.
So it's amazing to see how you guys have progressed, and now I actually understand what you're talking about, so that's good as well. So, most people who have been listening to this series of the podcast will realise now that I like to close on this question, which is, what piece of advice would you give to people that are either thinking about beginning their OKR journey or perhaps in their first quarter with OKRs?
I think, if you're thinking about doing it, I'd say definitely read up and do your research and get to know some of the content and learn the lessons from those who've gone before, so you can accelerate successful adoption. Yeah. And if you're in it already, I think one thing that worked really well for us and continues to, and actually we've just added a few more OKR champions in our business, but having OKR champions who are not only the leadership who've inflicted this upon you all, if you like, but others who are willing and available to help everyone else in the business understand it and come on board with it, has been really important for us. And as you engage more groups, to bring on OKR champions. And I think the other thing I'd say is, don't underestimate, but also don't undervalue the number of conversations that you need to have and that logistically you need to get in the diary, because these days people are just so busy and running from one meeting to the next. And if you don't protect time in the diary, like seriously 3 months in advance before the transition, when you know it's coming, then it's just impossible to get the conversations underway and completed so that you can have that alignment. So I'd say definitely champions, and definitely plan the time, make the time, value the time.
Fantastic. That is a lovely note to end on, I think. I think they're two really key pieces of advice. So we'll wrap it up there, I suppose. So
thank you.
Thank you for joining us.
Pleasure.
And thank you to all you guys listening at home or in the office or driving to and from meetings. As always, please join in the discussion when you see our posts about the podcast. Let us know what you think. If there are any particular guests that you would like to hear from, or any topics you'd like us to cover, just drop me a message and let me know. Or if you'd like to feature on the podcast yourself, if you've got an interesting OKR story to tell, then we'd love to have you on board. But until then, make sure you subscribe through Spotify or Google or iTunes or whatever platform you use, and join us next time for Giant Talk, the world's first OKR podcast. Ciao.